Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are almost done with Thomas of Woodstock. We've just got today and tomorrow to go, and then we're done with this one. And that's because we've got a whole slew of scenes that have no monologues in them. We're going to get to hear from Nimble today in Act 5, Scene 5, and we just finished Act 5, Scene 1 yesterday. Act 5, Scene 1 was the one wherein Thomas was murdered, and then his killers were also murdered, and their bodies were dumped in the river. And Lepoole was like, I should go and take my troops to support King Richard because it's better to be on his side than not. So Act 5, Scene 2, we are near King Richard's camp with Tressilian and Nimble. Remember, Tressilian is now like the Chief Justice. He's one of the flatterers, and Nimble is sort of one of the people that gets things done. He was one of the ones running around collecting the blank charters and distributing the blank charters. So we're with the two of them, and Nimble is wearing armor because they're getting ready to go to battle. And they're hoping that the proclamations that were sent that accuse York and Lancaster of treason will make the common people side with Richard instead of with the uncles. But they're hearing from the soldiers that they have gathered to support King Richard that the soldiers think that these proclamations are false. So whenever the leaders' backs are turned, the soldiers run away because they don't believe in it. They don't buy it. So they've got loads of deserters. And Tressilian is like, they're running away. And Nimble is like, yeah, and maybe we should go too, because if we end up losing this and we're captured by the uncles, then we're going to be killed. So they decide, for the sake of their own safety, that they are going to desert the army and just run away. And that's the end of Act 5, Scene 2. Act 5, Scene 3, we are at Radcott Bridge with York, Lancaster, Arundel, Surrey, Cheney, the Duchess of Gloucester, a bunch of soldiers. And the Duchess is weeping and mourning because she just lost her husband. There is a little bit of talk in this scene about like if Woodstock is dead. So they don't necessarily have confirmation that he's dead yet, but they're pretty sure that he is, because he was kidnapped and like sent off to France. What else would have happened to him other than he'd be killed? So she's very much mourning, she's weeping, and York and Lancaster are trying to comfort her, saying that they will get revenge for this and they're going to make sure that Richard admits that he did this, because they're pretty sure that he's responsible for it. And Cheney then like escorts her off into another room or somewhere over there so that she can mourn and try to collect herself and not be part of like this whole battle discussion that's going to happen. So then Lancaster turns and he talks to the soldiers to get them all fired up, and they're all like, yeah, let's go, we got this, we got this. And they hear the drums in the distance that say that King Richard and his army are on the march, and York is like, wait, what? I thought Richard was going to like hole up somewhere in a stronghold. Like, why is he marching? And Cheney says that Lepoole arrived from France with a bunch of troops to support King Richard. So change of plans, they decided that they were going to march instead of doing the stronghold thing. So Richard comes in, there's like more drums and trumpets. Richard comes in with Bagot, Bushy, Scroop, Green, Lepoole, and his soldiers. And King Richard is like, we could have decimated you, snuck up on you, and completely destroyed you, but we wanted to talk about things first and find out what's fueling this little rebellion thing that you have going on. And Lancaster is like, you are falsely having us arrested for treason, and you killed our brother. Which kicks off this whole back and forth of, you did this bad thing. Oh, well, yeah, but you did this bad thing. And then turns into, you better yield. No, you better yield. And there's a bunch of smack talk back and forth and a bunch of name calling until Bagot is finally like, look, you guys started this. Richard just came here because he wanted to talk. And Lancaster is like, okay, you want to talk? Call off the warrants. Tell us where Woodstock is. Get rid of your flatterers and put them on trial for misguiding you all of this time. And then we'll yield. But of course, Richard isn't going to do that. So they call each other traitors and agree to go to war. And that's the end of that scene. Act 5, Scene 4, we are on the battlefield with Green and Cheney. And there's a little bit of smack talk between the two of them. And then they start fighting. And then Arundel comes in to join Cheney against Green. And Green is slain. Which is interesting because the character of Green exists in the play King Richard II by Shakespeare. So if Shakespeare wrote this one, he had a massive plot hole, and maybe that's why he abandoned this one, or whoever it was that wrote this after Shakespeare had written King Richard II maybe just didn't notice that. Or if this one was written first and Shakespeare heard about it, maybe he just really liked the character of Green and wanted to bring him back. But anyway, Green, who exists in the sequel to this, is slain in Act 5, Scene 4. But anyway, Richard, Bagot, Bushy, Scroop, and Richard's soldiers enter, and they all start fighting, and then York and Lancaster come in along with Surrey, and they join the fight, and this fight eventually moves off stage, sort of giving the impression that the uncle's side is winning. So we just now have King Richard on stage with the corpse of Green, and he mourns, and he's like, my dearest friend, and I would do anything, and I would give up my crown to give you back, and I swear revenge on my uncles. But then Bushy, Bagot, and Scroop come back in, and they tell the king that they have to get out of there because essentially they've lost. They lost the battlefield. Liverpool has been captured. They really need to retreat. They need to get back to the Tower in London and set up their stronghold there. So as the king is once again talking about Green and, oh, this dear fallen comrade of ours, take up his body and take it with us, they all lift up Green's body and they take it off stage. And that is the end of Act 5, Scene 4. So, phew! Act 5, Scene 5, we've finally made it. And we are on a field near the Lord's camp where Tressilian and Nimble, remember them from Act 5, Scene 2? They come in disguises because they've been running away from the war this whole time. So they disguise themselves and they're like, okay, what's the next best way to get out of here? Like, things aren't looking good for the king. What do we do? Oh, hey, Nimble's like, there's this river. Maybe we follow the river. And Tressilian is like, yes, that seems to be a good idea because Richard is pretty much lost. So like, let's go. And Nimble is like, wait a second, hang on a second. I'm sure that I can think of a trick that will get us out of here to safety quickly. And just give me a second. Tressilian is like, come on, think faster. And Nimble says, I'll meditate, my lord, and then I'm for ye. Now, Nimble, show thyself a man of valor. Think of thy fortunes. 'Tis a hanging matter if thou conceal him. Besides, there's 1,000 marks for him that takes him, with the duke's favors, and free pardon. Besides, he's but a coward. He would never run from the battle else. Saint Tatany, assist me. I'll set upon him presently. My lord, I have thought upon this trick. I must take ye prisoner. So this is Nimble saying, like, hold your horses just a second. I got to think about this. And then most of this is an aside that Tressilian can't hear. And he's like, okay, I got to think this through for a second. If I help Tressilian escape, then I could be arrested and killed. And there's a reward of 1,000 marks for anybody that takes him in, and will be pardoned if we take him in. And like, he's a coward anyway, because why else would he run away from the war? So yeah, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn him in. So he turns to Tressilian and he's like, I'm going to turn you in. I'm taking you as prisoner now. And Tressilian is like, what? And Nimble's like, yeah, if I turn you in, I get money and I won't be hanged and I'm going to get a pardon because they're looking for you. And Tressilian is like, how do you know that? And Nimble's like, there's flyers all over the place. Everybody knows that you are a wanted man. So come on, you're my prisoner now. And with an, oh, villain, Tressilian allows himself to be led off stage. And that is the end of Act 5, Scene 5. So we covered quite a lot there. We've got Tressilian as the coward amongst the flatterers running away, but ending up getting arrested. We've got a war starting. We've got a lot of smack talk. We've got King Richard still not owning up to the things that he did. We have the death of Green, who Richard mourns quite a bit. And we have the uncles like asserting their power and strength and authority. It's rather a large shift when the flatterers realize that they are losing this battle and they have to retreat. There's a line that's something like, their forces are a mountain and we are a mushroom. Something along those lines, like realizing we don't have the troops to be able to fight this kind of battle, so we need to get out of here and regroup. So yeah, fun stuff. And we're getting towards the end. We just have one more scene, one more monologue to talk about before we get to the end of the play as it's written, but not necessarily the end of the play. But we'll talk about that more tomorrow. I'll see you then. Mwah.